I'm Phoebe, welcome to the Backlog quest. Earlier this year, I finished a trilogy by Amiee called The Blackcoat Rebellion. I did originally plan to have all 3 books in separate videos, with them posted about a week apart. With how long it's taken me to record the audio for my completed scripts, I'm combining them into one video. This is going to be far more spoilery overview than everything else I've covered so far because there's a few points about this book that really irked me and I do get a bit ranty. I have owned the first book in this series, Porn, for a few years now. I believe I picked it up when the book first came out. It caught my interest as I was browsing and then took me years to get to reading like most of the books I own. It was one of the books that I picked for my to-be-read pile using the Disney Princess tag, and this book was selected for Jasmine, a book about the desire to be free. I wasn't certain if this book would fill the tag or not, but it certainly did end up filling the tag. I have not forgotten about my TBR pile that I picked months ago. I just do not have as much time to read as I'd like, so it's been slow going. The book series is about Kitty Doe, who desires to have her old life back. She desires to be free from the caste system of their world, and she desires to be able to make her own choices, to be herself. Porn is the first book in the Blackcoat Rebellion. This book starts with the main character, Kitty Doe. She is the second child in a world that has restrictions on the number of children that a family are allowed to have. Her family name Doe is not her true family name. Her family name comes from being her parents' second child, called an extra. All the children with the name Doe do not know who their biological parents are, but they all come from families that are wealthy enough to keep them out of a place called Elsewhere, where the rejects of society go, and the extra children that cannot be afforded to be raised in group homes. The book starts on Kitty's 17th birthday. Everyone, when they turn 17, are tested to determine what their rank will be within society, from a 1 to a 7. The lower the number, the worse the outcome. Because Kitty is an extra, the highest number that Kitty can earn is a 4. While she's taking the test, we learn that Kitty is unable to read and needs to take the test orally. Because she's answering the test orally, she's unable to answer all the questions in time. She is not granted any extra time to do the test. As a result, she earns a rank 3, which everyone keeps pointing out is a good mark for someone who didn't answer every question. I like this weakness of Kitty. Her struggle with not being able to read reminded me of when I was younger, wanting to read but struggling to read anything, and taking longer than everyone else my age to learn how to read in the first place, when all I wanted to do was read stories. With a rank lower than she'd like, Kitty has been stationed in another town, but she doesn't want to go to where she's been stationed because she wants to stay with her boyfriend Benjy, who's also an extra, someone she's grown up with and known all her life. If she's sent away before they can get married, it's unlikely they'll ever see one another again. And if Benjy gets a 4, he'll be looked down on marrying someone who is a 3. Benjy hasn't had his 17th birthday yet and hasn't been ranked himself. It's established very early on that Benjy is extremely intelligent. There's something wrong with him if he doesn't earn a 4. And Kitty is worried that he'll go throw his rank on purpose and get a 3 so he can stay with her, which Kitty doesn't want him to do. She doesn't want to hold him back. Having given up after getting her low rank, Kitty goes and steals an orange in order to get herself punished, knowing that the punishment is either instant death or getting sent to Elsewhere. And since there's so little known about Elsewhere, she's not sure which she prefers out of those two. Elsewhere is where the rejects of the society are sent to, and the guard, instead of killing her for throwing an orange at him, instead comments about how her eyes look just like Leela Hart, the niece of the president. Benjy causes a distraction which helps him and Kitty get away, and this is the first event that really annoyed me in this book. That Kitty was so ready to die and throw everything away, all because she earned a rank that would separate her from her boyfriend, a rank that she was expecting to get from the start because of her inability to read. Kitty tells Benjy that she's spoken to Tabs, a friend that they grew up with who's another extra, and that Tabs has work for her in the town so she doesn't have to leave, which is essentially in a brothel. Her backup plan to stay near Benjy. So if she had a backup plan from the start, I don't get why she then had to go throw an orange at someone. Benjy rationally doesn't want her to go into that line of work because he knows that it's not safe and that Tabs isn't safe and he doesn't want her doing that either. Because of the orange incident from earlier, the guards come to the home where Kitty and Benjy have been raised, looking for Kitty. They don't find her despite the fact that she is in the home, and Nina, their group mother, lies for Kitty saying that she hasn't seen her. Benjy tells the cards that Kitty is considering going to the clubs, and that despite hearing this, Kitty still goes to the clubs anyway, knowing that there are people out there looking for her that want to arrest her. And this was the next thing that annoyed me about the book. If you know that people are looking for you, you know that they're going to arrest you, why would you go to the place where they're told that you're going to go? Benjy only did that to try and stop Kitty from going in the first place, because he assumed that if Kitty knew that people were looking for her there, that she wouldn't go, but Kitty's an idiot and goes anyway. Kitty's virginity gets sold off at an auction, and she's bought by President Hart. She agrees to go with him, and she agrees to the rank of 7 that she's promised, that is only granted to members of the Hart family, not knowing what she's actually agreeing to. And immediately she regrets saying that she'll go with him when she watches Tabs get murdered in front of her. And then she's separated from Benjy, which she didn't want to do in the first place. Kitty never really had a choice in the matter because she was going to be forced to go with President Hart no matter what she said. Kitty wakes up in a place that she doesn't recognise, and she no longer recognises herself. She looks like the president's niece, Leela Hart, who has recently died. It's not just her looks that have been changed, but her build of her body, her height, and her voice have also been changed to be identical to Leela Hart. Kitty has to pretend to be the deceased girl to stop an uprising that Leela has started. An uprising that Kitty wants no part of because she just wants to go home to Benjy. The only reason she was chosen in the first place was because of the guard that saw her and noticed her eyes were the exact same as Leela's. The only thing that they can't change when they're changing someone to look like someone else is the eyes. Kitty agrees to go along with everything, only if Benjy is kept safe. Kitty's shown a little bit of not being able to walk properly in Leela's body, but then just like that, she's imitating Leela in public. And it's like the family want her to get found out. They want people to know that she's not the Leela that she should be, especially considering how fast they put her in the public eye. Kitty and President Hart go to elsewhere, and instead of feeling like a major plot point, it just felt like a fleeting moment. We see the woman who raised Kitty, Nina, the only mother that she's ever known, has been sent to elsewhere, and Kitty gets excited to see her, and instead she's hunted down for sport. It's like the humans in elsewhere are being hunted down for sport by the super rich and wealthy of this world. And it was supposed to be an impactful moment, and it was supposed to have meaning to Kitty, but it just felt like, here's elsewhere, we're hunting down people. Oh, look, your mother figure's dead. Ha ha ha, you can't stop us. Now we'll go home. It's like seeing Nina die like that. It just didn't have any meaning. It's like if her character had been built up a bit more at the start of the book, if we had got to know Kitty, Benjy, Nina, and Tags all in the group home when they were still living together before she took her test, maybe I would have cared about those characters more, but they didn't feel like there was a relationship between these characters, despite the fact they were supposed to have known each other for years and years and years. This felt like it was supposed to be a plot point, and it's not a very strong one. So it's like, here's elsewhere, here's this mystery place that we've been building up for ages, and oh, we're here, oh, we're gone again. Kitty doesn't even seem to be affected long by losing her mother figure. She's taken back to the place where she's been staying, and there's a lockdown. The lockdown does not keep Kitty in place. Knox, who is the fiancé of Leela and knows Kitty's real identity, leads her out during the lockdown through a secret passage. I still don't know what purpose him leading her out during the lockdown served, and why did it have to be during the lockdown? Why lead her out at all when they don't really know each other yet? Kitty's just using this as a chance to escape and get back to Benjy, but she accidentally overhears Knox making a trade for weapons and just can't help sticking her nose in. If Knox knew he was going to make this trade, why bring Kitty along in the first place if he didn't want her to hear about the weapons trade? Kitty uses it as an excuse that she needs to go to the toilet to escape Knox in order to try and escape so she can get back to Benjy, which is when she overhears this conversation in the first place. And if she hadn't tried to escape, would have Knox tried to lose her in the crowd to make this deal that he didn't want her to hear? Did he want her to escape? I'm still trying to work this out even after finishing all 3 books, because they don't explain it and it annoys me. It's stupid. Instead of sneaking back into the palace, which is still in lockdown, they come back through the front door and they get reprimanded for going out in the first place. And I just ended up getting so frustrated. It's like, you took all the effort of sneaking out, but you didn't sneak back in again. It's like, why? No one explains anything to Kitty. They just want her to trust them. They don't tell her information, and they get upset when Kitty just doesn't blindly go along with what they're planning. Or when she sneaks around to learn the truth, they get upset with her when they catch her trying to learn the truth, telling them, oh, you should trust us. And the information that she does learn just seems to fall into her lap. Everything in these books just falls into place. Kitty needs to know this. Oh, we'll go just bring her there so she can learn it. They just doesn't feel to be a real struggle with these books and no real stakes. Like, I didn't care for any of the characters at all. It's like, I just didn't care. And this book did not make me want to care. Celia, the sister of the president and the mother of Leela, one of the people who knows Kitty's real identity, requests for Kitty to kill the president. During Kitty's attempt at killing the president, we learn that she's not the only person that's been masked, that the president has also been masked as well. Grayson, who's the president's son and Leela's cousin, gives Kitty this necklace thing that's, I called it a magic necklace the entire time I was reading it, because it's another plot convenience. It can pick any lock, electronic or physical, because Grayson's apparently a super genius when it comes to inventing stuff, but his character's just there and pops up with these plot convenient items whenever it's needed, and then he's back in the background again. But the necklace that she's given by Grayson, she uses this to steal files from the fake president, and these files show that the Hart family have been following her since the day she was born, and some of the details about the fake president, so they've known about her existence her entire life. Before Kitty kills the fake president, she chickens out, and rightfully so, because she's never killed anyone before. Then, out of nowhere, the president is a pervert, and it's like they're trying to show that he's a more terrible person than originally led to believe. It's like, I know at the start of the book he bought her at an auction that was selling off her virginity, but it's like, besides asking her to look like his niece, that plotline never went anywhere, and then all of a sudden it's brought up again like this. It felt out of nowhere. It's like, it just felt out of place. I wasn't expecting it, and it was like they're trying to make him a worse person than he's already bad in his own right without the sexual advances towards Kitty. It didn't feel like it was needed in the book for him to be a bad person. Knox, who knows about Celia's plan to kill the president, gets angry at Kitty for failing to kill the president and then withholds information from her again. And because she can't read the birth certificate of hers, but Knox is surprised, and it's so obvious that he's lying to her when he sees it and then tells her not to worry about it, so withholds even more information, which makes Kitty even more curious, and it's very obvious to guess what that information is on her birth certificate. Benjy is eventually brought to the Stronghold as an assistant to Knox and to form control over Kitty, but she just tells him straight away who she is, and he believes her, and their relationship's all hunky-dory. And I would have liked some tension between the pair, like him not believing her right away, or something different than what we actually got, like Benjy actually used against her properly, or her being close to him and not being able to tell him who she is to protect him, or anything other than we got, because it was just, here's Benjy, I'm who I am now, even though I don't look like who I am before, and he just accepts it, and their relationship just feels so flat, and I don't care what happens to Benjy, and Kitty has more natural chemistry with Knox in the few scenes that we've seen her with Knox than she does with her own boyfriend, despite him being around apparently her whole life, and he just doesn't get any character development other than the boyfriend, who's really smart and reads to Kitty. We find out that the real Leela is actually alive the entire time, and that Knox arranged it, and it's actually Leela's body double that died, and that Celia has no clue that her daughter is alive. And because Celia has no clue, she goes after Grayson in order to get revenge on her brother for killing her daughter, but it's like she doesn't know that the president's not her real brother, so she's getting revenge on a stranger, and Kitty convinces Leela to come back so they can go get her cousin back, because Leela and Grayson are close. And then the grandma, who is the real power of the Hart family, finds out that her granddaughter's still alive, and she makes the girls look even more identical to one another because Leela's gone and cut her hair short, and they do such a good job that not even the grandmother can tell her granddaughter and the so-called stranger apart. And there's a weird chase thing in the snow, and Celia chooses Kitty as her daughter instead of Leela, and Kitty gets a chance to escape with Benjy. And instead of escaping with Benjy, she goes back to try and rescue Leela from Grandma Hart. And Grandma Hart's so insane that she tries to kill her own granddaughter, and in the attempt, the grandma dies. And the president, he was knocked unconscious and in a coma somewhere during this confrontation. And when he wakes up, he pretends that he doesn't know that he's had Leela replaced with Kitty, that it's before Kitty was replaced, before Leela's died or fake death. And then at the funeral for his fake mother, he reveals to Kitty that he never had amnesia in the first place, and he knows that he's really a 5 and not the president. And I mean, why reveal it at the end of the book? Why not leave it for the next book and have Kitty worry about finding out that she's a fake and that the real Leela's not there, and trying to take down the fake president? And it would have been better if it took a little bit longer for him to fake. And why pretend to have amnesia in the first place if you're only going to reveal it 5 seconds later? It was another plot point that did not make sense, or could have made sense if it went on for longer. It just didn't like the way it was done. But Benjy and Grayson, who are 2 characters that are most important to Kitty and Leela, they're just 2-dimensional, and they're just plot conveniences for the sake of it. And I think the plot could have been moved on without them, and could have had a very different story without them there. It's like Benjy doesn't get developed, so why bring him into the story? Why not just leave him outside and she's trying to get back to him? He would have probably had more development by not being there. Despite my issues with this book, and it probably sounds like I hate it, I don't actually hate it. It had so much potential, and it left me frustrated that it didn't actually get there in the end. And I read the next 2 books in the series because I kept hoping that it would get better, and it didn't. And then I was like, why did I read these books? I keep going, I would have done this instead, thinking of how to rewrite it to make a better story, even though it's not my own. I was like, oh, it was so frustrating. I felt frustrated the entire time I was reading. I read through it very quickly because I was frustrated, because I just wanted to get to the end. The second book in the series is called Captive. I like this book better than the first book, but it still has so many problems, and so many of them would have been solved if people actually communicated with one another, and if Kitty wasn't so trusting and also so nosy. It's like, Knox, go and explain why you don't want Kitty at meetings. Sit down and explain things properly. So many things would not have happened if you had explained it. And your so-called plan with the Blackcoats involving Kitty and elsewhere involved Kitty knowing about that plan, but she doesn't know about that plan. The Blackcoats and elsewhere have no idea that Kitty doesn't know anything about that plan, and just drag her in, assuming that you've already told her because you were supposed to tell her and you said nothing. And we have a few passages of awkwardness between Kitty and the Blackcoats because she knows nothing and everyone assumes she knows something. Kitty then blabs that she doesn't trust Knox because he got Benjy killed and he's the one making the plans fail, and oh, by the way, Benjy's still alive, so Kitty's starting to trust Knox again because he faked Benjy's death and sent Benjy to protect Kitty and elsewhere. So Kitty's all like, trust Knox, I was wrong. Mercer, you are in charge of elsewhere. If you want Kitty to stay in your house, go lock her up in your house. Don't give her the choice to see the rest of elsewhere. She's your prisoner. She shouldn't be given choices. Or give her a choice and then do things your own way. It was like you only sent her to the prison to go show what the rest of elsewhere is like. And show that Kitty makes friends with someone that she can relate to in elsewhere, because this girl's a has a relationship with a boyfriend who's a guard, but it turns out she's a snitch who Kitty shouldn't have trusted so blindly in the first place, and Kitty trusted her only after one day. Scotto, who is with the Blackcoats, and I guess sort of the matron of the block that Kitty is in, if she just sat down and explained the rules to Elsewhere and told Kitty exactly who everyone in the bunk was, a lot of things could have been avoided, but no, Scotto tells Kitty nothing, and it's only later that we learn that she's a Blackcoat, and she drags Kitty out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night, and after Kitty's caught following her to a Blackcoat meeting, that we find out that she's a Blackcoat, and it didn't feel like it was meaningful. It felt like it was just done for shock value. I was like, oh my goodness, the main matron lady is about a Blackcoat. But it doesn't matter because she's going to get executed at the end of this book, and oh no, I can't do anything to stop it, so I'll just stand here and watch Scotto die. And I don't even think about it because I've seen so much death by this point. Scotto's death really annoyed me because she was the character that was built up the most in the second book. She would have been a good character for the third book, someone from Elsewhere who is a Blackcoat, but it's just like Amiee Carter didn't know what to do with her anymore, so she killed off her character, the one character that Kitty had made a connection with, except for the woman who's Kitty's biological mother, and she trusts her within moments of finding out and that she's her mother, and it was so easy to guess some of these plots. And the characters that actually had development, they all die. So don't get attached to anyone, because the characters that have development die, and the characters that don't have development, they live. I thought in the first book that Kitty had the same eyes as the Hart family because she's a Hart, and that's something that I was correct about. I was just wrong about who her mother is and how she is a Hart. I thought Kitty was Celia's daughter and that her grandmother didn't let Kitty stay around because of the fact she was an additional child, even though she was related to the Sevens, the main family who run the place. And even though the president has 2 children and her own, and the grandmother, she had 2 children. And some of Celia's actions towards Kitty, with how fast she warmed up to her in the first book, I thought that might be the reason why, that she knew that Kitty was a daughter. But it turns out that a woman from Elsewhere is Kitty's mother, and that her father is the real president, making Grayson her brother, half-brother, because they don't have the same mother. And that there's another brother that's born in Elsewhere too, though it doesn't actually say he's her older brother, even though, or maybe he's younger. I can't remember whether he's older or younger, but either way, he's in Elsewhere. Oh, it's River. His name's River. I keep forgetting what his name is because he's not that important. He's just there and has the same eyes as Kitty. And Grayson, no, I don't think Grayson has the same eyes. Kitty and Leela and has the same eyes as the Hart family. Kitty's relationship with Knox is, oh, I trust Knox with my life. Oh no, Knox betrayed him. He's going to kill everyone. I'm going to kill him because he killed Benjy, the love of my life. Oh, Knox was actually protecting me. We're BFFs again. He didn't really kill Benjy. It was just a plot to save me. But if Benjy gets hurt, I'm killing him. That was basically the plot of this book. After they get the rebels into Elsewhere, Kitty's locked up in a room with Benjy by Knox because so they can get closer together, despite the fact there's a war going on outside. But that's not going to develop their relationship at all. If anything, it makes Benjy even more flat character, if that's possible. At the end, it's revealed that Leela is giving the fake president's speeches, and it's not really a surprise that she's gone and swapped sides to him instead of the Blackcoats, which she's supposed to have been working for at the start of the book, because the real Leela is very, very blasé about the rebellion that she's got mixed up in, and this book's real quick and easy to read through, but there's no real substance to it, and I was so disappointed in everything that happened. It's happened so easily, and the only reason I kept reading is because I wanted to know how the mess in the final book fell in place. The final book in the trilogy, Queen, I liked more than the other 2, but not by much, which is not really saying much. Everything's still flat, everything's still easy, and I remember being so annoyed that everything was easy and no real substance, that I didn't write about this book when I finished the series because I didn't want to think about it. And I sort of wish I did, but I probably would have ended up with something just as ranty as what my first part was. I can't remember if Leela is still alive or not. I think she's dead. I think she's blown up in a helicopter partway through the book that's meant for Kitty, but I'm not going to go back over and have a look to see if I'm correct or not, but that's what I think happens. The main point is they work out who the fake president's real identity is, they hunt him down, and Kitty's the one to end him and end the war. And along the way, Kitty thinks that Knox is dead, and when he's dead, she pines for him, and it turns out he's not really dead, and Kitty and Grayson are locked together for a while, and she's close to Benjy, but she can't be close to him because she can't risk giving away that she's actually Kitty and not Leela, and Grayson has to pretend that his cousin isn't dead, and everything just falls into place. Kitty and Benjy, who had no chemistry between them, finally break up, and Kitty ends up with Knox, and it's so obvious that Kitty liked Knox, but I didn't really expect that to actually happen because of how much she clung to Benjy and did everything for Benjy in all 3 books, and there's no conflict between Kitty and Benjy or Knox when they do finally break up, and it just didn't seem realistic, and it just seemed to go too far smoothly, and I wish that Benjy had died during the series. It's like not at the end of the series, but during the actual series, I wish he died. Give Kitty a purpose of revenge, but he was just there. It's like, go kill him and give the story stakes or something. Go have some conflict because Knox really did kill Benjy or something like that. It's like, despite liking this book more, not much really happened during the story. It's like, yeah, find out who the president is, go get involved, even though there's a chance to leave again, go get locked in the palace or whatever it is, the stronghold, faking to be Leela again like in the first book, and then finally it's all over. And Kitty lives in the middle of nowhere with her mother trying to learn how to read because Benjy's still reading stories to her even though she's now with Knox. I don't know if these books are supposed to be middle grade or young adult. It's like the subjects that are written about feel like they should be young adult, and I picked this book up in the young adult section, but it reads like a middle grade book because of how dumbed down things are for a younger audience, and that's just how it read to me. An easy read like a middle grade book. It's like young adult's easy to read too, but it's like it felt more like that middle grade easy than the young adult easy. The conflict that was there could have been resolved if people spoke to one another, but everything just fell into place, and this story has potential. The bones are there, it just doesn't get there in the end. The characters are two-dimensional, the plot fell together easily, so many stupid things were done that it's like if people just stood and thought about it for a second, they probably wouldn't have done it like that. People need to learn how to communicate. Please communicate with one another, characters, because you didn't. And I just cannot recommend anyone else read this series because the Blackcoat Rebellion. I actually want to read Amiee Carter's other series to see if there's any improvement in her writing style, just to see if she's improved. This is the type of book where I read it and go, I can do better than this, even though I've never published anything. And if I ever do get published, I hope I'm not that bad as this book was. My book for next week is another book that I picked with the Disney Princess tag, which is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And this is another 3 books added to my completed pile in my quest to reduce my backlog of unread books. Thank you for joining me.